the parents. And so because nobody improved the parents, parents are left out. And so to each one of you who are listening, any parents, it's not your fault, some of the things that you don't know. But now it's time to know, okay? I've been teaching since 1997, and I have seen a lot of students whose parents have no idea what's going on with them. And I'm not just talking about students who are doing poorly. I'm talking about students who are doing well, who were in big clubs and different types of programs, and parents had no idea because they thought school was just like it was when we were in school, and they just took their kid to school and picked them up. And so there's a lot of things that parents need to know. And I think that it would be great to be able to give that to them. And this is a great place to do that. I am, as LaShaune said, I'm an international educator and tutor. I've been public speaking for more years than I can even remember now. I'm an author of the book that she showed you, How to Help Your Children Help Themselves. And I am a host. I host a podcast called Knowledge is the Key. Also host various programs around the city when asked. I love to speak about education, though, because that's my thing. It's very strange that so many of the students in the class that LaShaune and I graduated in have become teachers. And there's so many educators, and it makes me feel that high school must have been very good to us for us to go into that, because you don't do something you don't want to do. If you see it and it's bad, you probably don't want to get into it. So we, so many of us, even though some of us were in medical programs and in all kinds of programs, but we're all teachers. So it's obviously been a good thing for us, and we want to do that for others. We want to make sure that we get in there and show people how it should be done, and really care about these students and make sure that they're successful the same way our teachers did for us. So I guess we're starting. A lot of conversation has been going on about the pandemic and how parents can best support their children in this time. The pandemic has wreaked havoc all over the world, but I don't think, and maybe I'm biased, I don't think it has been as hard on anything as it has been on education. Education took a hit early and continued to get hit over and over and over. Many students who, for the last year and a half, were learning through Zoom or through other platforms did not receive what they needed. And there are a lot of students now in classes where they are a little behind because they're not as, they don't have the mastery level of the things that they learned in the last year and a half. And that's unfortunate. There are a lot of students who are going through even more issues because they have not been in a school building for so long. So imagine someone who is a sophomore who was not in the high school building last year, and now is coming back. You know, they didn't finish their 8th grade year in their school building. They didn't go to a new school last year. Now they're a sophomore and they know just as much as the freshmen, you know, or people who played sports who were out for a year and a half and now are trying to get back into shape or getting back on the team. There are a lot of things that people didn't really take acknowledgement of. And so there are a lot of troubles that our students are going through. So they need a lot of perhaps therapy and counseling and just someone to talk to and somebody to explain to them what's going on. Being a teacher myself right now, I'm finding that many of my students preferred virtual learning because they could do whatever they wanted to do. You know, I have to tell them all the time, look, this is what you need. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where I can look at you and see if you understand. So where I can test you and push you and this and the other. And they're like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. Most of them have to wake up early now to get to school, where before, if they were on Zoom, they could just roll over and push the button and be on at 8 o'clock and, you know, sleep till 7:59 and be on at 8 o'clock. Now, if they have to be at school at 7:45, they have to wake up at 5:45 and get ready and actually get to school. So these are just little troubles, just a small amount of troubles that some of them are going through. And you can kind of imagine, as a child or as a teenager, this doesn't appeal to you at all. especially if you've been out for so long. If any of those who are teachers, you know, when we have a break, like Christmas break, our students already come back sometimes not remembering what happened. Christmas break is a week and a half or 2 weeks. This has been a year and a half. So imagine the amount of things that have been let go. Imagine the fact that a student has had their phone in their hand for a whole year and a half, and now they're in class and you want them to put their phones down, or you want them to take their AirPods out. These are things that they have become so accustomed to, and it's kind of hard to break those habits that have been going on for so long. So these are things that we need to look at, and just things you need to pay attention to. I'm not saying that you don't need to help break these habits, just letting you know that those are some of the habits, those are some of the issues that are going on. But my first thing I want to say, and I want to make sure that everyone understands, is first, my book was written because of seminars that I was doing at schools in New York City years ago. And it was written before the pandemic took place, and it came out with Corona, I guess, at the same time, basically. So my book is not about the pandemic, but there are things that we need to get stronger on because we weren't doing them before the pandemic. And so if we do these things now, and we can hold on to these things to do even through the pandemic, when the pandemic is over, these are things that need to be done by parents. And parents, once again, let me say this, I cannot say this enough, I am not blaming you. You do not know because you were not told. Some parents know, maybe because they're educators or because someone spoke to them, but on a whole, most parents do not know what needs to be done because nobody has shared it with you. So first is to get to know the system. You have to get to know the school system, what types of schools there are, public schools, private schools, charter schools. You need to know what these different things mean because your child is unique. That's the crux of my whole book. Your child is unique. Okay.
I'm gonna get into that's the chapter. We talked about this a little bit beforehand. That's the chapter, but I'm gonna let you rock. I'm gonna let you.
But your child is unique for all of these chapters. You need to know because your child is unique. So get to know the system. If you don't know the difference between charter, public, and private schools, and we're not going to go into each one right now, but you need to know what they are because you need to know what fits your child. If your child needs accommodations, then you might want to look at public school because of the government's money that they give, they can allow for more accommodations for your child. If you're sending them to a private school, you need to make sure that private school does have those accommodations that your child needs. And you can find out about the different ways that you can still have your child tested and supported by the public school system while in a private school. All of these types of things need to be known. Charter schools as well. Charter schools are still funded by the public school system, but they're under charter of a board, and those schools have a different mission than some of the other schools. So you need to find out in these systems what the difference is and what fits your child the best. Mm-hmm. Then you need to get to know the school district that you're in. What do they offer? There are many school districts that offer things parents have no idea about. There are meetings, there are support groups, there are all kinds of things that different districts offer, and no two districts are alike. So even though these two districts might be next to each other, they might be totally different. Some may cater more to a diverse audience, some may not. Some may be run by an area that is high economics, and some might be a lower economic status. So you need to check that out and know exactly what's going on. Just because you live in a certain area does not mean that school district just gives to your crowd or the people who you have in your house, the students you have in your house. It does not mean it's the best school for them. You need to find out about schools that are zoned. Some districts have schools that all of them are zoned. Some have specialty schools where they might specialize in math and engineering or drama or entertainment or even aerospace engineering, any of these things. You need to find out what is in this school district because as LaShaune and I know, our school was not zoned. Many schools in New York City are zoned, And the school we went to was not. So there were people from Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, and Staten Island, from everywhere, you know? And it's a different thing when you have people from everywhere, not just the people from your neighborhood. So not just the kids who went to the middle schools in your area. There's a whole different thing going on there. You need to get to know your child's school, period, just that school building. What is the mission of that school? I remember the first time I did this seminar, I was speaking at Susan B. Anthony School in Hollis, Queens. And I asked the parents who Susan B. Anthony was. And a lot of people heard of her, and I'm not going to say that something was wrong with them. I didn't know who Susan B. Anthony was before I started researching it either. But your kids go to Susan B. Anthony. You know, you might want to know that she was with women's suffrage and all of these things. And you might even want to assume that this might be part of the mission of the school if it is named after her. We went to A. Philip Randolph Campus High School, and I remember having to watch a film on A. Philip Randolph before I went and found out that he was a Pullman porter and he marched with Dr. King. And every time I see those films, there goes A. Philip Randolph right there. That's, you know, that's him. So there are a lot of things that you should be aware of with the school. What's the mission?
Brian, let me interrupt you real quick. I'm so sorry to interrupt your wisdom because you're going. My children attend George Washington Carver Center.
All right.
Right? For Arts and Technology in the Carver, it's called the Carver Center for Arts and Technology, right? In Towson, Maryland. And I meant to say this earlier, please forgive me to all my indigenous folks that may be watching here. I am coming from Pikesville, Maryland, the land of the Susquehannock territory. So I have to acknowledge that land. But my children go to a school where, and I'm sure many people may know who George Washington Carver was. They attributed him and connect him to the peanut. Everything is the peanut when it comes to him. But when you dig deep, because I dug a little bit before my daughter started attending. She's the one who went there first. And I didn't know that it was originally a school that was it was a segregated school. It was really for free Blacks who they went from one schoolhouse, which held kindergarten, well, the little kids up until the 5th grade. And then they were supposed to be in high school. This was supposed to be their high school. And it was one small little building in Towson. And due to redistricting and all that wonderful stuff that happens, folks kind of took over and switched things up a little bit. So it became Carver Center and got a new building and all that wonderful stuff. But a lot of the students, because I was part of a parent committee, a lot of the students that were there had no idea who George Washington Carver really was and the history behind the school and the history behind who he was. And, you know, the parent group was like, wait a minute. How you gonna have students not even know, like, this should be part of the curriculum? They should know who this is. You know what I mean? And it was something that we were pushing for so that at least in freshman seminar, this is something that they were learning because in essence, they were walking on sacred ground, right? And to know who this is and who you're representing also changes the mindset. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that in there because I know where you're coming from. That's so important. You can't just send your kid to a school and like, oh yeah, this is, you know, I'll send my child here.
And George Washington Carver was a sought after professor.
Yes.
He didn't even want to take the job at Tuskegee first. He was getting paid big money teaching somewhere else, but he went ahead and came. So George Washington Carver is much bigger than the peanut. Much more than, he's not that guy on the peanut butter jar. He's definitely did a lot. And I mean, I did a lot of research on him. And so that would be great for people to know. And like you said, in addition to that, where the school is sacred because of what happened there. So they have a lot to learn, not just about him, but about where the school is and the history of that building. So that's great. And that's the kind of things I'm talking about. What are the accommodations at your school? What is the philosophy of the administrators? I mean, your head administrators are the captains of the ship. And believe me, you might not think so, but things run in the way that they want it to run. So a different principal can head a school in different ways. And you need to know, listen, what is the way this teacher, this principal wants their teachers to teach? What are the things that they're enforcing? What are their rules like? How do they feel about, different things that are going on? How do they feel about diversity? How do they feel about inclusion? What kind of things can you find out about that? What's going to happen when your child is in an emergency and they need something done? Is there some place they can go to? Does your school have those areas of safety and things of that nature? There are all kinds of things that you might want to know about the school. Then one of the more important things, even though all of these things are important, but I'm going in level of importance, coming to the apex of importance. Know your child's teachers. Oh my goodness. It's very important. Now listen, I know I'm not a parent, okay? But I've talked to parents for years, and I hear parents say all the time, listen, I don't have time to do all this stuff with the schools and all these things. And I will tell you, if you do it right, it won't take up that much of your time. It will take some of your time. And you need to invest that, because if you don't, it's going to take more time later, okay? But if you put the time in now, you can get some things done that will help you manage, okay? You're setting the stage so that things are managed correctly. So when you get to know your child's teachers, I'm not saying you have to be best friends. I'm saying every year you should know who the teacher is. At least speak to them on the phone, or as you go to the school and say, hello, I'm so-and-so's parent, you are, and now you know your teacher's name. When you can look at their syllabus or whatever they send to you, you'll know their classroom management style. You want to know if they're available for extra help. And you just want to know their teaching style. How are they going to teach my child? How are they going to present this information? Are they more of a facilitator where they give information and they sort of step back? Or are they one that really gets in there and breaks things down? This is all important. But the number one thing that I want to say to you about teachers is, and I'm a teacher, so you might think I'm a little biased about this, but I just want all parents to know this. When a teacher calls your house about your child and it's something negative, I need you to know that teacher did not want to call your house. They did not. The last thing they wanted to do was call your house, especially if they have to call you in the evening, because just like you just got off of work, right? They just got off of work. They're off and they're still working, okay? Your child has obviously done something that has disrupted the class so much that they're like, okay, I'm on my last hope. I got to call this parent. Because believe me, that's the last thing we want to do, is tell you something negative about your child. That's not a good thing for anybody. It hurts us to have to do that. So understand, please, be patient with the teachers. I know you might have just done a long shift and you might be having problems with that same child at home. You don't want to hear anymore, but just know this teacher is just trying to get their class back together and trying to hold things together. So they're calling you as a last resort, and they are calling you for more than just a report, but they are looking for help from you. They want you to do something that can help them deal with whatever's going on in class.
I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said, because I don't know, I had a few years of teaching of my own. I've had a few years, and Brian, you and I both have been administrators. We've been in various capacities, but I will say this one thing: when I was in the classroom, it was so important for me to send out an introductory letter or to have a meet and greet for my parents, right, guardians, caregivers. Right. I had grandparents, aunties, uncles, it was so important to have that initial connection, that if Miss Stitt, because then I was Miss Stitt, if Miss Stitt had to get on the phone, because there were plenty of times I would pull out my little BlackBerry, my little smartphone, flip phone in class. My students that are grown now, they'll tell you, it was real. I was getting ready to flip you on the floor because you have taken me to that level. Right. But for the most part, the parent always understood, and it was a team effort, right? But what I'm not seeing is that initial outreach by teachers. And I don't know if it's burnout. I don't know if it's structural or leadership issues. I don't want to call it, but what I can say is that is the most important connection that you make in the beginning.
That is definitely true. I just did that a couple of weeks ago. I sent an email out to all of the parents. I'm Mr. Watts. I'm your child's Algebra 2 teacher, and blah, blah, blah. And even a follow-up after that to let you know, these are the things that I'm expecting in class and all of this. And you're right. After you have introduced yourself and all of that, it does make it a little better for most parents. Definitely, because it's you've shown them that my first contact to you is not going to be a problem.
Negative. Right. You know? Exactly.
And even above that, something that I used to do was I would call schools for positive things. I'll tell you a little story. I was teaching Algebra 2 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had a student in there who didn't do anything. He told me, "Hey man, don't worry about me. I took this class before." And I was like, "Yeah, but if you're taking it again, then I need to worry about you. I need to get you straight." And all he used to do was eat Starburst all day, all period. And I don't know how many Starbursts you have to have in your pocket to eat it the whole period, but that's what he used to do. So he was actually a basketball player who I was told he was the best basketball player in the school, but he never played on the team because his grades were never high enough. So this guy had a lot of potential that was not being realized. And so I had a class full of guys like this and girls, because this was the class of people who had failed, and they were like, "We want you to try to pull them together." And of course, they're going to pick the guy from the Bronx in Nashville to do that. So that's what happened. So I'm teaching this guy, and we get to this topic that he says one day, he never pays attention, never really does work, but this day he goes, oh, Mr. Watts, I know that. And I said, "What you mean?" "Yo, that's my stuff right there. I know that you're about to teach. I know that." And I said, "Okay, then show it. Let's see it." And every question, everything I taught, if I asked the question, he raised his hand for the first time the whole year, and I would pick on him. And I told the class, "Don't feel bad. I'm picking on him every time he raises his hand because he don't wait. This is his day."
Right.
And everything he got right, every single thing he got, he knew exactly who he was talking about. And it was a Friday. I just let him go the whole day. I mean, the whole period, and he was proud of himself. I was proud of him. I was verbal about it. The class was clapping. People were like, "What?" Everybody's in shock. And we leave, and I get on the phone and I call his mom. Now, I've called his mom before for things he was doing in class, bad things. So when I call his mom, she says, "What?"
Yes.
"What you want now, Mr. Watts?"
Right.
I said, "How you doing? I just called to tell you that your son was amazing in class today. And he answered every question I asked. He was on it. I'm just in shock at how great he was, and I'm happy about it." And she said, "Are you sure you called the right person?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Are you serious, Mr. Watts?" And I said, "Yeah, this was his thing. He knows this." And I just went on and on about him. And her whole tone changed. I never heard her like this on the phone. She was very happy, very excited. And Monday, when he came back to school, he was like, "Yo, Mr. Watts, you my guy, Mr. Watts." I said, "What's up?" "Yo, my mom, she loved that you called her. She gave me some money. She let me go out. She let me do this. She let me do that." He had a great weekend because I had called his mom for something positive. And I know that's not going to happen for every student, but every time somebody does something out of character that's better, I call their parents. I let them know, look, encourage them, keep them going. This is what we want to see from them. And I implore all teachers to do that as well. If something happens great, please call the parents and let them know, "Hey, I'm going to call for good stuff and bad stuff. I want to let you know, I want to celebrate your child when they do something." So that's important. But I just want the parents, because we're not talking to the teachers right now. When I talk to the teachers, I'll talk to them about the stuff they're supposed to be doing as well. But the parents, I want you to know, when we call, it's because, especially when it's something bad, it's because we have to. If it's good, it's because we're excited to, and we want to be a part of that. The biggest thing.
The other thing is, we don't want teachers to wait until the last minute to call about something that is bad. That's probably the worst thing to do.
I've done that, and a parent has said to me, "You should have called me days ago."
Right.
When this
Right.
started, you should have called me, because I assumed that this parent was like other parents that might not have been doing anything. And so I didn't call. And it's like, no, we could have had this taken care of 3 weeks ago, Mr. Watts. You know, so yeah, it's important to jump on it. If it's something that's going wrong, take care of it, because if not, you're encouraging it. You're helping it go on. You're basically just telling the student, this is fine. You know, you're an enabler. And so you don't want to do that. The biggest thing that I want you to do as parents is to get to know your child. Now, I know, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a parent, so I'm gonna put that out there in the front.
I love your transparency, though.
Thank you. I know that you think you know your child. And I know that you're saying, especially if you are the mom and the child's dad today, and you're like, well, we made this kid, so we know each other, we know our child. Believe me, your child is not just a mixture of the two of you. The child has his or her own things going on as well. And believe me, the worst comment I've ever heard from a parent when I tell them that their child did something is, they never did that before. Believe me, everybody does something the first time.
Your child is totally different from how they are at home
Oh,
and the environment with their other peers.
Definitely, they can be. Some children are the same. I had both sides. I've seen both sides. I had a student who was very arrogant in class and would talk down to people and just everything. And he wasn't usually right about his answers in math, but he would talk down to people like he was right and push people around and stuff. And I called his mother and she was like, no, my son doesn't act like that. And I said, what do you mean? And she was like, Mr. Watts, I'm not one of those parents who doesn't believe what teachers say. I'm just telling you that's not him. That's not how he acts. And then when I saw him around his parent, he was a totally different person. I was like, wow, I didn't know this could happen. Then I had a niece who was great at school, and her parents was like, she was a terror at home. And they would go to the teacher before they even started the conference. They would say to the teacher, we just want to apologize. And like, what are you talking about? Your child is an angel. And they're like, who are you talking about? So it's possible that they can be the exact opposite in school. Very possible. Most kids aren't, but some are. But the thing I'm talking about is not just that you don't know how they act. You might not know things about them that they think and they feel, because those things might not be discussed. And there are plenty of things that you can do to change that. Okay, I mean, there are just having conversations with your child on a regular basis, even when they're young. And I don't care if they're little silly conversations or whatever, just conversations to start to feel them out, to know what's on their mind. They're going to tell you when you talk to them. They don't know better at that age, 6 and 7 stuff. They're going to say things that's going to speak from their heart, because that's how they are. And those conversations will tell you a lot about what's going on with them. One thing that my parents did, which was easier for them to do living in New York City, was they took us to a lot of museums and things like that. If you don't have museums or places of interest, planetariums and things like that in your city, then find some other places to take them, but expose them to things and listen to the things that they're saying about. You know, when we would go to the zoo, we would see different animals and my parents would talk to us about them while we were there. My mom did something well, I know it was at least my sister and I, that we could not stand, but we benefited for it. We would watch after school specials, and then after it went off, she would turn the TV off and we had to discuss the whole show. And we're like, we don't talk about this, but it made me a person who can express his feelings now. You know, it made her understand what I was feeling about these different things. And maybe she could pinpoint if something was going on in my life that had to do with this special, what the special was talking about. So these things help because you're connecting, and it doesn't take a lot of time. You may talk about something over dinner. You may talk about something when you first get home or right before they go to bed. Whatever it is, conversations here and there will help. Also, you want to encourage your child in the things that you see them doing well in. So I will tell you that at 4 years old, I'm dating myself right now, but I had that big magnet board. I don't know if y'all remember that. It was a big board that you would put the letters and numbers on. It wasn't very fun, but it was fun for me at 4. So I had the big magnet board, and I'm sitting in the living room. I can still see me sitting there, and I'm just playing with the letters and the numbers. And my mother comes out and she puts an addition problem on there. She says, hey, now I'm 4. She says, she puts like, I don't know the numbers, 2 plus 3. And she puts the equal sign and I put up the 5. And she goes, really? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay. So she's thinking maybe that was just lucky. And she puts up some more and she keeps doing it. And I'm getting the mic. She's like, Brian, how do you know this? And I'm looking at her like, what else could it be? I don't understand. What else? It has to be that. That's what it is. And so she calls my dad out there and he's amazed as well. And they start doing subtraction and I'm doing that too. And they're just like, how does this kid know how to add and subtract? He's 4. And, you know, to me, it just made sense. It wasn't even something that I thought you did in school because I'm not even in school yet. So I'm thinking this is just life. They put up multiplication. I don't know what the X means. So I didn't get that far. But what my mom did after that was when she went, maybe a few years later, when she would go to the store, she would always make sure I went with her. And I would walk up and down the aisles with her. And as she put things in the cart, she would tell me how much they cost. And I had to add them up. And by the time she went through every aisle too. So every aisle. And by the time we got to the end, before we got to the cash register, she would say, well, what's the total? And I would tell her. And then she would say, well, put the tax on. And at that time, New York state tax was 8%. Mm-hmm. So I would multiply it by 8% and add the tax. And at this point, I'm like maybe between 8 and 9 years old. And we would get up to the cash register, the cashier, and I would tell her the total, and that's what the total would come out to be. And she'd be like, okay. Now, she never said, oh, that's great. She never gave me money. I'm not saying don't do this to your kids. I'm just telling you. She never rewarded me for it. So I thought that that's what all the other kids, that was what their mom was doing. You know, I thought, oh, this is everybody's a human calculator. That's what you do. You know, I'm seeing kids with their mom, and I'm not speaking to them because I'm like, I know you got a bunch of numbers in your head. You're trying to add stuff up. Nobody else was doing that. Okay. But it made it so that I knew how to add more than and subtract and all that more than just in school. I realized that it was a life skill. Mm-hmm. And one day when the cashier came up with a different total, my mom looked at me. I looked back at her and she was like, Brian? And I said, yes. And she said, that's not what you got. And I said, then she's wrong. And the girl looked at me and my mother said, your total, and this is what made me know. And kids will find all kinds of ways to know that you love them or care about them. This is what made me feel like my mom cared about me. When she said, my son said the total is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, she's down with me. Okay. And the girl said, who, that little kid? Like, how he know? You know, because I'm a little kid. She's what, 17, 18 years old, and she has this big machine. Right. So they start to take everything out the bags. And the girl says, how many cans of this do you have? And my mom says 4. And she says, oh, I put you down for 7. And so now in my head, I'm like, there we go, right there. Because now I'm sweating a little. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not sure. And she adds it back up and it comes right to the total I said. And she looks at me, the cashier's like, you're a smart little boy. And instead of thinking, thank you, I was thinking, you're not, because you got a big machine and you messing up. Wow. But it made me see that, yes, people can make mistakes. All these things are going to happen. But if you know your math, you can conquer some stuff. You're not going to lose some money. You're not going to have problems there. And it changed me. So my mom encouraged that. She kept me doing that all the time. If there was something mathematical to talk about, she was coming to me with it. And it was like, whatever subjects you're good at, your parents, you can push your child in this. You can make them see it's not just a subject in school. It's not in isolation. It's life, okay? Whether it's science or social studies, whatever it is, bring it into your everyday conversation. Bring it into your life as much as you can. Now, all of that is good. But on top of all of that, I think that we need to know at least 3 things about our children. One.
Wait, don't give it away. Don't give it away. Don't give it away, not yet. Because I wanted to get into this. Well,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Do your thing.
First, I have to say that the fact that you broke the chapters down, and they're really like, this is a real easy read. Okay.
And purposely done without a bunch of research and stuff put in the book, because I wanted parents to read it. I didn't want all the footnotes and all the stuff. I wanted them to get, okay, I can read this without, the research is there, but it's not all written down.
It was good for me because I could understand the language, right? And I want to I would like to let Ms. G know that you will be getting a free copy of Brian's book. Yes. For being here this evening. But there are the chapters. Okay, so first off, I know we talked about the teachers and the schools and the system and so forth, but we're in a pandemic. So a lot of schools are not allowing parents to come in for like, school visits. You can't just come in. Right. So what would you tell a parent to do, or even a teacher, if you flipped it on the other side, or an administrator? What strategy would you encourage teachers, parents, administrators to use in order to, number one, initiate communication, and number two, to keep it going, even in COVID world?
That's definitely good. First of all, I want to tell parents that in this pandemic, just be ready for anything. Be on guard. Just be ready for whatever you say they cannot do. Yeah, they can do that. Okay, it can possibly happen. Okay, I remember people saying there's no way they're sending us back, and then we were back. So, anything can happen. The communication has to happen, and nobody, teacher, administrator, parent, should be waiting for communication right now. The pandemic is so insane that everybody is running around, like they used to say, like a chicken with their head cut off. So if you feel like you need communication, jump on it, initiate it, get to it, because I can tell you as a teacher, I could be thinking about, I need to talk to these parents about this, that, and the other, and then something else happened that day and it just goes away. So if you feel like it, that you need that communication, initiate it. And believe me, you'll spark something that may help other people, because yes, like, oh, wow, thank you so much. I forgot about that. And now you know what's going on, and now other people will be told as well. So many things are happening now. I really feel bad for teachers per se, because a lot of responsibilities that were not teachers' responsibilities are being put on teachers now, just because of how many things are going on. Now, I can't tell what other responsibilities from the superintendent are being put on an administrator, but I'm sure that it's all coming down, because everybody's dealing with things that they didn't have to deal with before. And so it's pretty hard. And professional development, although it's a great thing, is not happening the same way it used to happen. We can't have a lot of people together in a room. So there's a lot of things on Zoom. And I'm gonna tell you, it's a lot easier to fall asleep on Zoom than it is when you sit in the room with your friends.
Not for everybody here, though. We don't want anyone.
Oh, no, we don't want anybody here to fall asleep. But I mean, I'm gonna tell you, because most of the time on the PD, you're not talking back and forth like we are. You know, somebody is just talking to you and showing you slides, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm sitting still and I'm in a comfortable chair. It's over. You know, so it's not the same. So there's a lot that needs to happen. But I also will say to you, the other thing that I would say about this pandemic is that you need to set real limits for your children.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about realistic, firm limits for your children. Understand this. And we all know this, but it just doesn't always hit home. Especially middle schoolers and high schoolers, teenagers. They're going to test the limits. That's what they do. Okay.
That's their job.
And it was your job when you was there. So you got to remember, you think back, even if you were what they said was a good kid, you still tested the limits at some point. So understand this. Think about how this looks. If you don't set limits for your kids, that's not going to stop them from testing them. They're going to test whatever limit there is. So you're letting them go far to test limits. If you put structure in place and say you can't do this, and another, then that's the limit they will test. But if you let them do whatever they want, now they want to do even more. Yep. Okay, so they're going further and further. They're getting into trouble that they wouldn't even get into had there been some other limits set. So set real limits for them. If they're at home and they're not going to school during the pandemic, then give them stuff to do. And these things have to be done when I get home. You know, in fact, I'm not, because I'm an adult now, I will say this. I wouldn't say this when I was a child. I don't care if you think you gave them too much. You'll figure it out when you get home. If you figure out, if you gave them too many chores and they just can't get those chores done, you'll see that your kid is huffing and puffing and saying, Mom, I just can't get it done. Then you'll know I can adjust a little. But please don't let them just do whatever they want.
Right.
Because whatever they want will be past your wildest imagination.
Right.
And their friends will suggest things to them, and TV will suggest things to them, and movies will suggest things to them, and you will be somewhere where you never thought you would be. So please, especially in this pandemic time, set real expectations and limits for your children so that they can, even when they buck the system, they're still within the realm of logic and common sense.
And you know what, Brian, is very true, because I've had to flex recently. And that's, again, it's because, you know, you allow, well, my mother used to say, I'm gonna give you enough rope to hang yourself, you know. And so now you've hung yourself. Now you have this noose around your neck. So guess what? We're gonna reset, and we're gonna make sure everything falls back into place.
Right.
Some of the heat that I get, and I won't say heat, but a lot of times, especially when it was face-to-face, when we were able to talk face-to-face with teachers, you know, the title doctor is like a gift and a curse, right? Because a lot of teachers are under the impression, oh, you're a doctor, so your kid is this, that, and the other. My child is like, my children are just like any other children, right? They're gonna push, they're gonna pull, they're gonna try me. They're not going to know everything, you know. And I know that as a parent, that's very frustrating, you know, because you're putting a lot of weight on me that is not fair, because I'm just like any other parent. I have 3 children, and they all have 3 different personalities, which we're going to talk about later. But they are who they are, and so to think or to assume, oh, you're an educator, so you have all this. Yeah, but it's not about a cookie cutter thing. Everybody doesn't fall into the same, you know, category or
You weren't born an educator either. I mean, that's not something that you got in your heredity. You studied, became that. So.
Right, and it's trial and error. And any parent, especially parents of multiples, will tell you that. You know, the first is different than the second and the third. And if you have, you know, more or whatever, they are all different, and they in their own space. Right, Miss G?
There are 3 of us, and we're all different, and we're grown now, and we're still all different.
Right.
We've never been. So yeah.
Right, but you know what? And this is why I appreciate, and I'm talking about this chapter in particular, because it is the chapter on children, where Brian says, get to know them for real. Yeah. Okay. You got to get to know them, and it's not just about, oh, he likes this, he likes to play games, or she likes this. No, it's bigger than that. Right. And I'm gonna have to give credit to Monique and Brian. You know who that is. That's my Ethel, Lucy and Ethel. We were always doing some kind of caper or whatever the case may be. But Monique, in conversation, she said to me, did you ever get them tested doing the Myers-Briggs? And I was like, no, I didn't. And when I even, you know, I know you have to pay for the Myers-Briggs and everything. There is another version on online. It's called 16 Personalities. And I had the younger 2, my daughter and my son, take the test. And when I tell you, it was so, how can I say? Besides being eye-opening, enlightening, it was like, oh, now I get it. But it helped me kind of shift the way that I talk to one. It's not the same way that I could talk to the other one. The way that I help another one, you know, identify certain things, that's not what I do with the, oh my God. And I'm still like, because it's a lot of information, but the different personalities are broken down so that you can kind of figure out, you know, and even if it's not necessarily like, if your child is not going to be this architect when they get older, or an engineer, or whatever the case may be, their mindset, the way that they think, the way that they process, the way that they do the way that they move, how they're sensitive, how they're, you know, and that's why when I read this chapter, I was like, look at Brian. And even though, and I have to say this, even though you say, you're not a parent or whatever, a lot of times, I say veteran teachers know students because we have had such a variety of students.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you have that wealth of knowledge that maybe a parent of 5 or 6 may have, but
Right.
you have had so many diverse students that you've had that experience. So it's a little bit easier for a veteran teacher to say, you know what? Yeah, I've seen that before. I know that kind of behavior and so forth and so on. Let me tap into that potential. Let me show them, that's why I appreciate your transparency. I was laughing when I read it. I was like, look at Brian putting his business out there. But people will question your credentials, but they'll also question who you are. You're not a parent. How you going to tell me what to do, and so forth and so on?
But you know what? Can I make this statement though? When you say that, both of you, you have your own credentials in your own right. But when you are a teacher, and I hate to say this, no disrespect to parents, because I'm a parent too, but when you have 1 child, 2 child, 15, 18, 20 children, and it's rotating on a daily basis, and then it goes to a yearly basis, you become that child's parent in that time frame that you have that child. We're not babysitters. No, we are not. We're teachers. But at the same token, a teacher is learning your child intimately, their thoughts, their needs, their wants, their whether or not they need an IEP, whether or not they need a 504 plan, whether or not, like, hey, this child works better in a small group. They are learning your child on a different perspective. But at the same token, you might have a child come into the classroom that might come from a different school. Say for instance, like Baltimore City versus Baltimore County. And Baltimore City, that child is learning to defend himself in the classroom when they should be learning in the classroom. And so they bring the attitudes, they bring the fears, they bring whatever they just came from, the trauma, now to the new environment.
That's right.
So it's like they're bringing all these things with them. And then you have a parent that might say, well, I just don't know what to do. Or I tried this, or I tried that. And then you have this one teacher that might tell that child, like, hey, you don't, I'm sorry, are you still here?
Yeah.
We lost your visual. Okay.
I'm sorry. It was a call that came through. I'm sorry. You might have that teacher that tells that one child, like, hey, you don't have to be this way. You don't have to be all tough. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for you. I'm gonna love you like your parent loves you, but I'm gonna be a little tough on you because this is a learning environment, and this is a safe zone.
Right.
So it's like all these different things. So you might not have your own kid, but you probably got 100 kids.
Right.
Or if it's 800 kids in that school, somebody's gonna know, like, that's Mr. Watts.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And since I've been teaching for so long, there are adults now who say stuff like that. And I try to tell them not to stop trying to make me cry in front of people and stuff. One of my colleagues, unfortunately, just passed last week. I taught with him years ago in the first school I taught at. And one of the students got on Facebook, and he was the one who I found out from. I said, what? So-and-so passed? And he said, yeah, but Mr. Watts, let me go ahead and give you your flowers now and wrote a paragraph about me. And I'm sitting like, okay, it's too late at night for me to be reading this. Right. You trying to make me cry, dude? What you doing?
Yes.
But it felt good because it was like, he got it, And I will tell you now, I don't take credit for the kids who come into my classes very smart.
Right.
I'm a mathematics teacher, and if you come in and you're great at math, then basically I'm facilitating for you. I might teach you a few things, but you got it.
You got it.
Take credit for those kids who tell me I can't do math and I'm never gonna be able to do math, and then they pass. Those are the kids I'm celebrating. Of course, I'm celebrating the other ones too, but I take credit for those. Like, I did something in your life. I changed your mind about you know, and now you feel like I can do this because somebody poured into me. And that's all that people are really looking for. And it's not to take anything away from parents. Parents know you're sending your child to be with somebody all day in the beginning. And then, you know, they're transferring from teacher to teacher. They're trying to learn all these subjects. There are a lot of children who, like you said, are coming into new situations. I had a girl come to McGarrick High School in Nashville. It was the biggest high school there, huge high school. And she had never been to school before. She was homeschooled.
Oh.
And so I didn't know, but she's sitting in the front of my class and she looks real timid. And it's the first period, the first day of school. And she's like, hi, Mr. Watts, how are you? And I'm like, ooh, what's going on with her? She must have had a great breakfast or something. You know, like she's really amped, you know? And she was like, yeah, I was like, wow, she's really energetic. And she was like, this is my first time in school and this and another. And I was like, oh, okay, I got you. All right. And so she goes to take off her coat because she had on a coat and the sleeve was snapped on this arm, but not on this one. So she pulls that one off and she goes to pull up. She can't get it off and she flips out. Like she starts screaming and I was like, hey, it's okay. And I help her get her coat off. But had I not known that she had never been in school before, I wouldn't have known what to do.
Right.
You know, I would have been like,
what's wrong with you? Right.
What's going on? But there are things that you start to see. And because I wasn't a first year teacher, I wouldn't have flipped out either because I know different children have different triggers. And this is her thing. So I knew I had to hold her with some fragile gloves. Right. And, you know, I myself, to put my business out there again, I was a very sensitive kid. So, but my parents didn't know how to deal with sensitive kids because their first kid was so independent. She was doing whatever she wanted to do, doing her thing. And so with me being ultra sensitive about everything, it was like,
right.
But you're right. There are teachers who are like, I got you. You know what I'm saying? I know how to deal with you. I've done this before. And so, you know, your parents, you're not going to have a whole bunch of different kids here that, you know, that you deal with and that you set straight. So it's—
Shout outs to Anita. I'm sorry. That's Ryan's sister.
It's big to put it out there. I mean, you know, I went to high school. I was 5'4", I think, when I went to high school. And
really?
A lot of other kids were like 5'7", 5'9". LaShaune was tall. Everybody was tall. So it was like, you know, I'm the shorty and I got a whole bunch of homeboys with me. They're all short too. And every day when we would come in, the people used to laugh at us. Like we was the real short kids in high school. And we were just walking around like, yo, like what's up? And not only was I short, I looked like I was 9. So it didn't help. I didn't lose the fat cheeks and the rosy smile and all that, the little kitty fat until halfway through 12th grade. You know, I finally grew some inches and got some sideburns. Then I was like, oh, he is in our class. You know, so it happens. There are different things that kids are going through, and you can't tell what's bothering a child, you know, unless you know them.
Right.
And you have to talk to them. You have to figure things out. And when you do some of the tests for personality, for learning style, and for intelligences, those 3 tests right there will give you so much information on your child that you will start to understand not just who they are, but how they do things, how they process information, how they use their energy, how they get energy back. One of the biggest misconceptions is the terms introvert and extrovert. A lot of people use those terms incorrectly, okay? So people think an introvert is a person who doesn't like to do stuff and an extrovert is some outgoing person. That's not really what it's about. Extrovertness and introvertedness is about how you get energy. Okay?
Right.
So like Michael Jackson was an introvert, but he was the greatest entertainer in the world. So I'm like, people are like, well, how can he be out on stage doing all that stuff if he's an introvert? Because introverts are people who gain energy by being alone or in a small group. Extroverts are people who get energy from being in big groups. So while I am this big personality that people say, this is not my words, and I'm out joking and playing all the time and laughing with people, entertaining crowds of people, I'm an introvert. I get my energy by coming home and getting away from everybody and relaxing, and that's how I refill. And people, no, you're not no introvert. You don't know what the term means.
Right.
Because that's all it's about. And so I don't get energy from being with people. I lose energy. I'm tired after I finish.
It drains you.
With people. It
Yes.
drains me every single time. But there are some people who, when they go out there, that gives them energy and they're ready to do something else. So you would have seen if you were at, the best example I can think of is our graduation party. Probably one of the first parties I really went to. But I had a great time. I'm with a whole bunch of people. We're laughing and playing. We're out till 2:30 in the morning, and I'm tripping because my parents had gone out of town, so I'm loving it. My sister said I could go, so I'm all hyped, and I had a great time, and we're outside. They're closing the place down, and everybody's like, "Hey, man, we're going downtown to a club," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm done.
Right.
I can't do no. I'm drained. I don't have any more." But some people, the party hypes them up. They're ready to go do all kind of other stuff. Now I got to go home. One, because I'm not even used to being out this time of night. That's number one. But two, I'm extremely. I can't hang no more. I have to go relax. And so that's something you need to know about your child. And a lot of people see different things in their children, and they push those things because they think they understand what that thing means, and it doesn't really always mean that. When it comes to things like multiple intelligences, which are
talk about Gardner a lot.
Oh my goodness, Gardner did a great job with multiple intelligences, and they've added a couple. They added a couple since I learned about it in high school.
Right.
One of the two that we deal with in the United States are the logical and the linguistic. Those are the only two we deal with really in the United States.
We don't touch the kinesthetic. We don't touch.
No, we don't. We don't touch any of the other 9 intelligences. We say that people are smart if you're good at math or if you're good in writing and English and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's it. Other than that, like Einstein was considered not to be smart. There are musicians who are considered not to be smart, but they were smart, intelligent in those areas. And it doesn't mean that you have that talent. So me, because I've been a math person all my life, when people say, "Well, what's your intelligence?" I would say, mathematical, logical, mathematical. And they go, "Yeah, that's true. You're good at math." And I was wrong. I just kept saying, I never took the test. I kept saying it to people like, "Yeah, because I'm Brian Watts. I'm the mathematician. That's what I do, son." But that wasn't true. And so I finally took the test. And it said, when I looked at what it said, I was like,
were you analytical? What was it?
No, I was interpersonal was my name. And I am a relationship person. That's me all the time. I'm, almost everything in my life revolves around how I have relationships with people. Now, did I have some logical stuff? Yeah, but that's not the talent is not your intelligence. Talent is your talent. That has nothing to do with your intelligence. Your intelligence is how you pull in information, how you process information, and how you use that information. And everything comes to me through relationships. And that's just how it is. So this is something that parents look at kids and say, "Oh, my kid is good at this, they must be that." No, have them take this test. There's a free one on personalitymax.com, and it will test all 3 at the same time. It actually tests 4 things, but I haven't talked about that 4th thing because your brain hemispheres. I didn't deal with that, but the temperament, which is your personality, your learning style, and your multiple intelligence, you will answer these questions, and it will spit out all of those things for you.
What's the website again? Because I want to put it on the page.
Personalitymax.com.
Okay.
And that's my book as well. I gave them a lot of props, even though I didn't get a sponsorship from them, but I didn't ask. But
you gotta get on it.
They no question. But I'm saying, it's big because it spits it out for you. And I'm gonna tell you, the first time I did this conference in Hollis, we had computers out, and I had people looking at me like, "Whatever, we heard of that stuff before. That ain't true." And then they took the test. I had the parents take it, and I would suggest to all parents to take this test. I remember, I can still see this lady's face. She was almost crying because it explained to her everything in her life. All of a sudden, she was like, "Oh, that's why I do this and maybe that's what I should have went into. Maybe I should have done this." And then I was like, "Yeah, you have You know, this is the way you process your information. You learn this way. This is your personality type, and this is where your intelligences are. This is, now you can be directed. But what can parents do with this for their child? Now, when a teacher calls home and says, we're having problems with little Johnny, with this and other, you say, well, Johnny learns better when this happens.
Right.
Not to cancel out what has happened in class.
Right.
To encourage the teacher that, okay, well, if you really want to reach him, these are some of the things that he's better at. He's his intelligence is in intrapersonal or it's in music or whatever. You know, if you put something to a rhythm, maybe that will catch it. Or he's visual, or he's kinesthetic, or whatever it is. His personality is this. He's going to try to do this, and he's going to try to manipulate, or he's going to. You start to give them information, which is why teachers are calling you in the first place.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So now you have that information, and not only can you help the teacher, you can help yourself and your child, because now you can take them to things that interest them. You can help them deal with stuff. Me being interpersonal, my parents didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about that. But because we had family around, and because I was at a church where I talked to older people, I was always with the old ladies at the church. Love old ladies. Oh my gosh. Old ladies were the best.
You know, it wasn't for the candy in the purse?
No, they didn't have candy. And I wasn't eating that candy that didn't have the wrapper on it anyway. But they just loved me and talked to me, and I felt I had a relationship with them. It's like all of them were my grandmothers. And even to this day, some of them are still alive. And when I go back to visit, it's like I'm their son, you know.
The wisdom of the elders.
Yeah, and you know, and they know that they can talk to me. I'm not saying anything when they start talking. I want to hear what they have to say, you know. And I remember being 10 years old and always being with this older lady. She was a Bible instructor, and I was with her all the time. People were like, what is up with Brian and that lady? But she was teaching me, and I was learning, and I just could not get enough from her. I wanted to just get all the knowledge I could. And a lot of cultures are like this. When you look at Asian cultures, even when it comes to things like martial arts, people stay with their teachers. No, they learn from their teachers until they learn everything from their teachers. Right. And then they have to go to their teacher's teacher, you know, because they want to know so much. And I think that if we start to encourage and push our kids in a way that we know they should be pushed because we've learned about them, then they won't be so resistant. The resistance comes when you're pushing them into a way that they don't have any interest in. Right. Because you don't know who they are. Right. A lot of them are screaming to you like, you don't know who I am. I don't know who I am, but you definitely don't know.
Well, you know? I will say this, and I'll say this, and then I'm going to pose this to you. So I had to stress to one of my youngest that it's important for you to learn how to advocate for yourself. You're in high school. You need to find your voice, and you need to be able to advocate for yourself. Right. You need to be able to ask the questions that are going to help you move from point A to point B. You need to learn how to question things too. That's part of the learning process. Think critically. Okay, well, if this happened, then what should I do? Am I satisfied with this grade? If you're not satisfied with the grade, what can you do to improve that grade? 9 times out of 10, the teacher is not necessarily going to tell you that. Now you need to do it on your own. Right. And so I have gotten to the point where I've been pushing them a little bit out of their comfort zone, because number one, this is the training ground now. Mm-hmm. So whether you choose to go to college or you choose to go to the military, or if you choose to go, I prefer not to go to the military, but if you choose to go into the, in a workplace or a business person, whatever, you need to learn how to think critically, think independently, and question things, not always be okay with the status quo. You have to learn how to do these things in a respectful way. I'm not saying, be like, yo, what's it? It's a respectful way for you to question what is happening. Because again, and you talked about this earlier, life skills. These are not things that they're like, remember when we were younger, there was character development and
critical thinking
and critical, all those things. That's not happening. We have resorted to being a data-driven system. Right. And I say this as an administrator, teacher, parent. This is what we're doing. And it is forcing so many of our young people to, like you said in the beginning, they were comfortable with being home and being in the virtual world. because of the simple fact that it's all about numbers, and that personality connection, that relationship building is not happening.
Wow.
It's not happening. So I would say this, and I'll pose this to you. I think it is extremely critical for us as parents to get to know, okay, and it's going to be trial and error, and you won't get everything right, but to get to the point where if a Mr. Watts calls and says, you know what, Mr. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with such and such.
Right.
You can say, like you said, have you ever read The Alchemist? Have you ever read The Four Agreements? Like, these are things that, as far our teachers are concerned, they're not getting this professional development. They're
Right.
not getting professional development and human development
Right.
and relationship building. So it's up to the parent to find their voice, to advocate not only for their children, other people's children. But I'm gonna ask you this. How can I put it? What would you tell a parent of a middle or high school student who's like, it's a little too late for that? You know, maybe when they were younger, I needed to know this. I don't really need to know this now. What would you say to a parent like that? And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying
I'm gonna have to get a good response for that, because I want to say something that I probably shouldn't say, but it's never too late for anything like that. If your child, okay, there's a couple of things. One is, we all want our children to be successful, and most parents, I would say, want their children to be more successful than they were. Just because your child is successful doesn't mean that that's the level of success they're supposed to be at. They might be better than that, but if they're fooling around and they're still having to be successful, that child still needs to be pushed. They're comfortable, like you said. And so I would say there's no time to stop, because believe me, when your child finds out that you knew how to get them higher and you didn't, that's going to be a problem. And you want the relationship when they're older to be better, not worse. Okay. Right. So I would definitely tell somebody, please do all you can right now. When you catch the information, disseminate that information, put it out there. Don't wait. And when it comes to being an advocate, one of the things that, that's big for me, to advocate for yourself. One of the ways to teach kids to advocate for themselves is in your home.
Right.
To listen to things when your child says, well, Mom, I don't want to wash the dishes tonight. Okay, so before you slap their teeth out like our moms and dads used to do, what do you mean? Because I'm sure they might be speaking respectful. It might sound disrespectful to you because you don't want to hear that. But what do you mean? Why don't you want to wash the dishes tonight? And sit down and let them tell you, oh, okay, so that means this and the other. And when you have a real conversation with them, they understand the problem is not me advocating for myself. The problem is that my argument wasn't good enough. And so I'm going for that. So now I have to come up with a better argument for what I'm doing. I have to advocate in a way that makes sense so that my parents will go, oh, okay. And, you know, my parents I didn't really rebel against a lot of stuff. I was a good boy, but because I was just scared of what could happen. But, you know, there are times when I would say stuff and I would have my argument together. And sometimes my mom would be like, that's really good. I mean, we're not going to do that, but
that's a good one.
That was a good argument. And, you know, one day we had a discussion about profanity. And my mom always told me that people who cursed and stuff didn't have big vocabularies. And I told her that wasn't true. And I convinced her. Not that she was like, so start cursing.
Right.
But she was like, Brian, don't tell anybody that, because that's actually a great argument. And I don't want everybody out here cursing. But, you know, when you teach your children to start to talk and to do that at home, then they start realizing I don't have to take it from other people.
Right.
I don't have to just take everything that's put on me. Some things are wrong. You're going to save them from a lot of bad relationships. You're going to, and I'm not just talking about intimate relationships, not friendships, loving romantic relationships, anything. You can save them from a bunch of that by teaching them to advocate for themselves. And that's really called having agency. And that's something that a friend of mine and I are actually developing a lot of talks on right now. And we'll be actually, you know, promoting stuff like that to school districts so that we can teach kids, young kids, high school kids, adults, teachers, everybody about having agency, and so that you don't end up doing things that you don't want to do or that shouldn't happen to you in your life. You have to take hold and really, but you have to be taught that, because so many of us, maybe between low self-esteem or low self-worth or whatever it is, allow things to just go on, or we just let the wind blow and we just go wherever it blows. So we don't want that to happen.
Right. Well, I will say this, and before we finish, I want to again, Brian, tell everybody how they can get your book, please.
How to Help Your Children Help Themselves is available on Amazon.com and on BarnesandNoble.com. But an autographed copy is available by logging on to BrianWatts.com and clicking on my book, and you can order the book there. It will be sent to you. It is $20 plus shipping and handling. And if you would like an autographed copy, I can sign it for you and we'll send it right out.
I'm going to put all of this on our website as well as on our page, so that folks who choose to watch the live stream later on, they can get that information as well. But Ms. G, because you have been here and you rocked out with us the whole time and participated in the conversation, you will be getting your copy. Brian, I know I got my autographed copy.
Yes.
But I will be
I'm not far from you. We'll take care of that. We got you.
Okay. And so, Ms. G, you have your copy. And next Parent Posse chat, I just want to plug this in real quick, is going to take place on October 27th. And we're going to be talking to Julie Shamas, who is a homeschool parent, who started out as a homeschool parent. I'm a former homeschool parent too. And we're going to talk about how the homeschool life has taken over now, and how more parents and more families are starting to homeschool, and what the difference is. And I think this is where we kind of get confused. A lot of people think, oh, because my kid was home during the pandemic, they were getting homeschooled. There's a difference.
That's not the same
That
thing.
is not homeschooling.
Yeah,
okay.
That's doing school at home.
Right. So we're gonna have that conversation. I'm really excited about talking to her, because she started an organization where it is a resource for parents for everything. I mean, from camp to how to get your child to enjoy science to whatever. And we'll talk a little bit about road schooling, because that's another movement, another trend that's happening too, where parents and families are starting to say, let's hit the road. Let's go visit the Grand Canyon, and we could do all kinds of activities based off of that. So that's going to take place on October 27th from 6 to 7:30. I'll put everything up again on our page and our website, and I'll be promoting it. But I just wanted to put that out there before we wrapped up, because this is honestly, I don't think we have enough conversations when it comes to parents, because everything, is about like the schools and the teachers and the and that, but the parents are at the root of everything, right? And so how can we best help, support, and prepare parents who are struggling? I'll be honest, we all struggle, present company included. We struggled, like, how do I meet my child's needs? How do I make sure that they have that healthy balance? How do I make sure that I'm not pushing them too much? Because the sad part is, on the flip side, we had a lot of young people who took their lives because they could not handle what was happening during the pandemic. A lot of parents took their lives. So, there has to be that healthy balance. And again, getting back to professional development, that human development and that human interaction needs to be on the forefront. And I don't think it's getting the light that it needs right now. And so having these chats and these conversations, again, I don't know who is going to touch, I don't know what you said, Brian, that may filter through and someone be so touched by it, or, even Ms. G with your testimony, or whatever the case may be. But it's important that we have these spaces and we hold these spaces for folks who feel like, I need some help. I don't know what to do. And I don't necessarily think I need a therapist. Maybe I just need to talk to other people who are going through the same thing, And so this is the space that I'm holding for us parents.
Well, I want to thank you, not just for having me on, but for having this space, because it takes a lot. And I think a lot of people take it for granted that people do things like this, that, oh, well, she's doing it because whatever reason. it means that you had a heart for it and that you have a passion for it. And it's your purpose to help people right here. So this is great. I encourage you to keep it up, to keep doing your thing. And like you said, you have no idea who it may touch. It might not even touch anybody on this first level, but they might tell somebody and it touches them. So you're doing your thing, and just be sure that, you know, this is what you're supposed to be doing and you're doing something positive. I mean, you're not out here making $1 million from doing this. You're putting out your time when you have a lot going on. So, you know, this is great. It's definitely great for our community and for all communities at large. So be encouraged and continue to do this as long as it's your passion to do it.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Be encouraged. I love it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Watts. I love the content.
No.
Oh.
Thank you, Dr. Stitt.
You're quite welcome. And the beautiful thing is that all three of us are teachers, right? We're all educators. I tend to, sometimes I cringe using the term teacher because we are more than that. We're educators, and we're not just educating the young people. I know, Ms. G, you have the little folks. Brian, we have the bigger folks. And even having taught on the higher ed level,
Right.
you still have this relationship building that has to take place. You still need to have these conversations, and you still need to know who you're reaching. And so we're all educating at different levels, and we're planting seeds at different levels. So it's important. And I'm so thankful that we were able to sit here and have some conversation. Ms. G, I appreciate you so much.
Oh, no, I appreciate
you. Phenomenal parent. And Brian, you don't know her
thank you
on a personal level, but I do. She's a phenomenal parent, and definitely deserves her flowers. And
thank you.
Brian, even though you put your business out there, you're not a parent, you're still parenting.
Oh my goodness, I am, and I'm trying to stop, but yeah, it keeps happening. So
it's okay. You're walking in your purpose, right?
There you go.
That's what it is. That's what
it takes a village.
It definitely does. It definitely does. Again, Brian, did you want to share your website?
My website is thebrianwatts.com. I do still give this parent seminar to schools. I do them in person and virtually. So if your school needs that for your parents, churches can also book me for parent seminars to come out and just have a seminar with the parents of their church, or if they want to bring surrounding parents from other churches together. The seminar includes the book for each parent, and I do seminars for teachers on professional development. I also, if I do a seminar to school for teachers or for parents, I usually come by and talk to the kids as well, because that's the fun part. And I like to get in, and all kids like when somebody disrupts their class. So that's always a good time. So, you know, they can reach me at thebrianwatts.com or at 202-505-1503. That's the number. info@thebrianwatts.com is the email address.
Wow.
We definitely need you here in Baltimore County. That's for sure.
Well, listen, I'm close. I'm down the street. So come on, let's do it.
See how we plug that in?
Yep.
MSG, give us a little bit about your venture, your business venture.
Guiding Hands and Hearts. That's what we're talking about. Okay,
yes.
so Dr. Stitt and I are in collaboration together. Educate the World and Amazing Children Rewarding Partnerships is my entity, and we are embarking on a project that will actually take 2 regions of Baltimore County, Southwest and Northwest Baltimore County Family Support Center. There's a lot of disparity here in Baltimore County with children who have disabilities. It's a lot of racial inequalities, health problems. You have teenage pregnancy, parents who are in need of help, not just our Black community, but our brown community as well. And we just want to have that space where parents can come in, get the information they need for their children. The children can come in get the the help that they need. A self-sufficiency program, infantile program, educational program, and a health program.
Yes.
So we're hoping and praying that this will go forward and change the dynamics here in Baltimore County.
Yes.
All right.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I really am. I know we have a few things on our plate. I'll just say, again, Educate the World, which is the umbrella for Women of the World and Women to Women, as well as Guiding Hands and Hearts. And the work that we do, we'll continue to do, not just for, families in Baltimore County, but hopefully we can get everywhere in Baltimore, Maryland,
Yes.
wherever across the nation. I know that we're in an age of the COVID living. This is going to become our quote unquote new normal, but we're trying to reach as many people as we possibly can so that we are building young leaders and we're supporting families and parents and women in particular. So
Yes.
it's 7:30 and I want to thank you all. I want to honor your time and thank you both for being here. I wish we had more folks that were here to engage in the conversation, but sometimes intimate conversations are the best conversations to have.
That's okay, because you live stream Facebook, and let me tell you, even though they might not have been here, it's out there.
That's
It's
it.
out on the World Wide Web.
That's it. That's it. And I'm encouraged. Thank you so much. Thank you to Ms. G. Thank you to Brian Watts. I appreciate you both. And you all stay safe and
You as
healthy.
well.
And hopefully you'll be able to join us again for the next one, October 27th from 6 to 7:30 on Educate the World. Join us on check out our website if you can. ETW Community is on the page, our Facebook page, as well as our Instagram, ETW_org. And I guess that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.